Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Kiddushin daf Chav Tes, we are going to begin about 8 lines from the top by the famous Mishnah, which begins now. Says the Mastisin, Kol mitzvos haben al av, any mitzvah that the son has on the father, anashim chayavim and nashim baturos. Only men have to do, but not women, which is going to be hard to understand. The Gemara is going to explain this entire Mishnah, because we know if we're talking about kibbud av v'aim, so women also have to do kibbud av v'aim. So we'll have to understand how to read this part of the Mishnah. Furthermore, b'chol mitzvah ha'av ben, literally any mitzvah that a father has on a son, echad anashim ve'echad nashim chayavim. So men and women are obligated to do it. So again, we're going to have to understand the language of that Mishnah, how to dissect it once we get into the Gemara. And then we find the famous klal. V'chol mitzvah sasesha zman grama nashim chayavim nashim paturos. Anytime you have a positive time-bound mitzvah, even though of course there's exceptions to this, the din is that women do not have to do them. However, even though it's a positive mitzvah, however, it is not bound by time, even women must do those. However, when it comes to the 365 mitzvah salosa say things you're not allowed to do, it doesn't make a difference if it's bound by time or not. So the only time a woman is pater is only if it's a positive mitzvah and it's a time-bound mitzvah. However, there are exceptions. Now, even though these are lavin, so you would think that women are mechuyev in these things. However, we say that they are pater. Baltakif, Rashi says pas haroish, cutting off the pious. Bal tashchis is the beard. Ubal tetame, says Rashi, to kohanim. The issue of becoming tameh only applies to male kohanim and not women. Says the Gemara. So now we have to understand, what did the Mishnah mean when it says kol mitzvos haben al av? What does it mean kol mitzvos demachai b'ra mevid la'aba? All the obligations that a child has on the father. So it says that nashim paturos. Is that true? You're telling me that a girl is not obligated to honor or to do mitzvos for the parent? Vasanya ish enli el ish manayim kishu emer ish imav aviv tiro harkan shnayim. The pasuk says that not only do you have to fear your mother and father, not just an ish, but tira'u. The fact that it says it in lashon ramim means the son and the daughter, they both have an obligation to do this. So how do we understand this Mishnah? They're not pater. So Omer Yehuda Hachakamer, Kol mitzvos haben hamutalois al av. Any mitzvah, this is the beginning, this is how you're supposed to read the Mishnah. Anytime you have a mitzvah in which the father must do lasos of no to the son, anashim chayav anashim baturos. In other words, this list we're going to see, there's a chiyuv only on the father to the child and not the mother to the child. Or alternatively, the father to the son. Why? How do we see this? Only the father is obligated to the son to these are all things that they must do. That they have an obligation to. He has an obligation, first of all, to make sure his child has a bris milah, to redeem him for pidyon aben, to teach him Torah, to make sure he gets married, and to teach him a trade. So these are all things that the father has an obligation to do. So on this, that's what it's coming to tell you. These are situations of the chiyuv of the father to the child, but it's only the father. The Yesharim, some say afal hashitai b'mayim. You also need to teach them how to swim. If you don't teach your child how to a job, you're teaching him how to steal. So it's like you're teaching him to steal, because it says Rashi says he has no job, he has no skill sets, he has no food. He's going to go by the crossroads. He's going to steal. He has no choice. So if you don't educate your child and teach them the skills, so they're going to end up, unfortunately, on the street doing a lot of bad. So l'moyel menon. How do we know that the father has a chiyuv to do bris milah for the child? It says that Avraham did bris milah for his son, for Yitzchak. In a situation where Avua, the father, did not do the milah, so machayev beidina lemimhale. So then the beis din has to step up and do it. Dechsiv himo lachem kol zachar. So there's a chiyuv, and this is an extra pasuk. It's coming to tell you that every male has to have a bris milah. So even if the father doesn't do it, so the beis din has to step up. If for whatever reason the beis din doesn't do it either, so then you have to do it yourself. It's not an excuse. You can't blame your parents. You have to recognize that even though maybe they should have done something for you, you still have to accept responsibility also. So the din is that if you don't have a bris milah, it's din karis. So therefore it's on you to make sure that you have the bris milah. Now, ihi menon delo mechayva. So the father has a chiyuv to make sure that a bris milah, but not the mother. Now, why not? Only him and not her. So Ashkan miyad. I can understand that immediately, because this is to Avraham Avinu. L'dardas menon. How do we know that this din also applies to all future generations? Namely, that only a father is mechuyev to make sure that the bris milah is done to the child, not the mother. So Tana Rabbi Shmuel, Kol Makom Shenemer Tzav, anytime it has the lashon Tzav, Enu El Ziruz Miyad L'Doris. It's telling you a lashon of Ziruz, that you should be very careful in this matter, and therefore it should be done immediately and for all future generations. Dechsev Tzav Yoshua, they commanded Yoshua the Chaskei of Yimsehu, and he was strong regarding this. Immediately now and for all future generations. How do we know that only the father has a chiyuv to do the pidyon? That you're supposed to redeem every of your firstborn children, your firstborn son. If the father doesn't do it, then you have to do it yourself. It's interesting over here, it skips beis din. For some reason, beis din is not intervened. Apparently that's what it means. The fact that it says pado tifta, again, the repetition means that you have no choice. It has to be redeemed. If your father didn't do it, don't blame your father. Do it yourself. How do we know that the mother is not mitzvah to redeem her son? So why not? So Rashi says the kivan de mitzvah saseh shelo azman gramahu by krolam yuta. Interesting. Even though it's supposed to be done on the 30th day, but if it wasn't done right away, it has to be done at any point. So it's maybe she's mechuyev. Dechsev tipade tifta. Kol shematzuvah liftoisas atzma matzuvah liftoisas acherim. B'chol she'ena matzuvah liftoisas atzma, ena matzuvah liftoisas acherim. So just as she doesn't have to be redeemed, so she doesn't have to redeem anyone else. So how do we know that the chiyuv of a pidyon ben is only on the son but not on a woman? The pasuk says tifta tipada. Kol she'acher matzuvim liftoisa matzuvah liftoisas atzma. B'chol she'ena acher matzuvim liftoisa, ena matzuvah liftoisas atzma. So we know that she doesn't have to redeem herself because there's no chiyuv of redeeming others. So it seems like we're going in a circle. So how do we know that others are not mitzvah to redeem her? Do you recall? It's pretty clear. This is the language of banecha, that you have to redeem your sons and not your daughters. Let's say for whatever reason you're now in a situation where you only have enough money to be able to redeem because your father didn't redeem you, so you won't need to redeem yourself, but you also have your own son that you have to redeem. So who kind of live? No, you do it yourself first, just like the airbags, right? Put the airbags on yourself first before you assist the child. No, you should do your child first. One is a mitzvah on the father, and the other one is the mitzvah of the son on him. In other words, since you, the father, have a chiyuv to make sure that your child is a pidyon ben, so that's the first thing you should do. Even though it sounds like it's a clear machlokas. They actually agree as we continue to Chav Testament Beis. Kol heicha deleka el chamish sloyim. If all you have are 5 sloyim, the minimal amount to be able to do a pidyon haben, who could have night? My taima mitzvah de gufi adifa. So even Rabbi Yehuda holds that if all you have is 5 regular sloyim, everyone holds the din is you have to do it yourself. So then where's the machlokas over here then? Ki pligi heicha deika chamish mishubadim v'chamish b'nei chayrin. You have 5 b'nei chayrin, which means you have 5 regular coins, and you also have 5 coins which are mishubadim. So it's connected to encumbered property, so it's not liquid. Yehuda Savar milva dechsib b'tayra k'su v'shtar dami. That the fact that there's pidyon haben, that which is a mitzvah in the Torah, that's ki'ilu like it's written in the shtar, says Rashi. Uba pidyon atzmo hayi mechuyev koidim sheshibit karkaisav. So the obligation to do the pidyon haben took place before your lien on the property. V'yitrof es halukuchos, and therefore the lukuchos have rights to this. Says Rashi, the ein ze oina shari mitzvahs benoyo lav yoysim mitzvasai. You have a mitzvah on your child. So bahani chamish parik lebrei. So take these 5 and redeem your son with the 5. V'azul koyin v'tarif le'luchamish mishubadim l'didei, and the kohen can go and collect the from the mishubadim. Rabbanan savri milva d'ksib b'raisa lav k'ksub b'shtar damya. It's not considered like it's written in a shtar. It's like a milva al peh. The hilchach mitzvah d'guvad if therefore you do yourself. So the idea is, do you have the ability to be able to have this collected at all, or perhaps not? So let's look at question TA 26. Ha'im pidyon haben goyva mishubadim. Can you collect the pidyon haben from mishubadim? So of course this is the machlokas Tanakam Rabbi Yehuda is what we're saying. TA 26. And what is that totally? It's totally on this machlokas of whether or not you hold milva dechsiv b'tayra k'ksuba b'shtar damya. Is it considered to be as though it's like a milva b'shtar? Let's see how he writes this. Puta v'tanai I milva k'suba b'tayra k'ksuba b'shtar olo. That's all he says. All right. Okay. Weiter. Says the Gemara. So that's again, but otherwise, if all you had was 5 sloyim, so then you're put to yourself. Okay. Tanabam. Liftoi says benai lalei sula regel. So what should you do? Not again if you're being paid to yourself or part of your child, so you're paid to yourself. However, what if instead of being paid to your child, you have the ability to go to your shalayim? So paid is benai v'achach oil regel. You should first do pidyon haben, and then you can go to oil regel if you have extra monies. Rabbi Yehuda Omer no oil regel v'achach paid is benai. You should go to your shalayim. If you want to go to be Ola Regel, you have to do it now because Pesach's coming, Shavuos is coming, right? So you can't delay it. However, pidyon haben, if you don't do it right away, you can always do it another time. So Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda Kedekam Taima, he says a pretty interesting reason. Why do the Rabbanan feel you should still do pidyon haben first? If you look in the order of the psukim, first it says redeem your child. Then it mentions about this notion of that you shouldn't go into the base of Mikdash Shalaim empty-handed, but you should have karbanos. So, but what is the order? It must be that there's a reason why it's written in that order. First, you have to redeem your child. Let's say you have 5 children from 5 wives. That the din is you have to redeem all of them because pidyon haben Talmud Loimer Kol B'chor B'necha Tifta, that you have to redeem your child. So Pshita B'Peter Rechem Tol Rachmana. What do you mean? It's Peter Rechem. It's the first of her issuance. So it's not totally by the man. When it comes to pidyon haben, it's totally by the woman. So a more practical example: a man is married, he has a son, and then he gets divorced. They get divorced. And he marries another woman who's never had a child before, and she has a son. So he does another pidyon haben, even though it's his second pidyon haben, but it's totally on the woman. So you would think maybe it's totally by the notion of Yerusha, of Nachla, inheritance, which goes by the husband or the father. Kamash one, we go by the mother. And therefore, it's shaykh that he can do Pidin Ben and numerous kids. So one of the things that a father has to do is teach his child Torah. You have to teach your child Torah. If the father doesn't teach him, then you have to learn yourself. How do you know the mother doesn't have to teach? Teaching and learning. Anyone who's obligated to learn has to teach. Anyone doesn't have to learn, doesn't have to teach. How do we know that she doesn't have to learn herself? In a situation where other people are mechuyev to teach, you have to learn yourself. But in a situation where people don't have to teach you, you have to learn yourself. So again, we're going in circles. How do we know, in fact, other people don't have to teach this girl? So it's similar drasha that Pidyon Ben. So therefore, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, of a father teaching Torah to his child, is limited to a son, not to a daughter. We'll see if that means daughters don't learn anything. That would be a hard thing to imagine. We'll have to understand that when we see more of this. Tanabon. Hu limdoi ben limdoi. Let's say, just like Pidyon Ben, you have the ability to learn Torah or your son, right? You can only support one. So who kind of libnoi? So the child. So you go first. You would aimer im benoi zariz. If your child is a zariz, he's successful, and his learning, he retains all of his learning. In other words, you have a child who is this genius, this exceptional boy, then you should have your son learn instead. You should support your child if he is an Eloi. Rav Yaakov, just like the story of Yaakov, Rav Achel, Bar Yaakov was the son. Shadri Avul Kamei de Abayu, he sent him in front of Abaya. He saw Kiyasa Chazid Loyhava Mechadid and Shmaisa. His sugi wasn't sharp. He didn't understand everything so well. So I'm like, I'm better than you. Nice thing to say to your son. Tuvat, you come back over here and sit down. The Ezel, no, I'm going to go. Sham Abai to call Havi Asi. So Abaya heard that he was coming. So Haviyahu Mazik Be'Rabbanan da Abaye. There was this Mazik in the Be'Rabbanan in the base Medrash, which was quite far. Rashi says Min HaYishuv. It was a little bit out of the beaten path. Tachi Havi Alwi betrain. Even if two people would come, if we have Yomi during the day, Havi Mitzaki, it would cause damage. So there was this creature of sorts which caused tremendous damage. This which was mazik. So Amru lahu lo tesav leinish ushpiza. Do not get a place for this guy to go. I don't want Rav Yaakov, right? Who's Rav Yaakov, the son of Rav Achabar Yaakov, right? I don't want him to have a place to go. I want him to basically have to sleep in the shul. Maybe a miracle happened. He got there and boss Bahu Be Rabbanan. Boss Rashi says his lawn. He slept there. Idmile Katanina. So this mazik, this like demon, had the appearance of a snake. Shiva Resh Vase, which had 7 heads. Kol Kriya Dekara, every time he bowed down, Nasr Chad Reshe, one of its heads fell off. Until finally it died. So we see the notion of says Rashi, Kol Kriya Dekar Rav Acha, every time that Rav Acha bowed down. So because it says Kihod Rav Yaakov Bered Rav Acha. So Rav Yaakov was the son of Rav Acha. So now Rav Acha is the one that went, and every time that he would bow down, Mispalo Oiso Mazik Nasr Chad Reisha. When he bowed down, it was a form of davening, and one of the heads of the snake fell off. Armahul Machar, he said, Ilos Rachash Nisa Sakintin. If there was not a miracle, you put me in a dangerous position. Tanurban. What should you do first? Should you learn Torah or should you get married? So it says learn Torah first and then get married. Let's say it's impossible without a woman. Then you should get married, then learn Torah. Halacha, the actual halacha, what should you do first? You should first get married, then learn Torah. How's it shaykh that you're going to tell me once I'm married, I have this rechaim b'tzavadoi, I have like this millstone on my neck. You know, it's the pressure and the stress. Now you have a family, you have to provide for that family, so it's going to be hard for you to be able to learn Torah with a clean head. So it makes more sense you should first learn Torah, then get married. It's not a machlokas. It depends where you're located. If you're located in Eretz Yisrael, or if you're located in Bavel. So let's look at, this is question TB27, and this is actually a shtickle manna. We'll have to look in Rashi and then Tosfos actually for this, just to understand Pashup Shot. So in Bavel and Eretz Yisrael, they disagreed, should you get married first or should you learn Torah first? Says Rashi, B'nei Bavel hayo hayichem v'garsim mishnayis hatanoim Eretz Yisrael. So if you're in Bavel, if you lived in Bavel, to learn Torah, that meant you had to travel to another country. You had to go to Israel to learn. Since you're learning away from your home, you have nothing to worry about. Out of sight, out of mind. So you should first get married. This way you're not going to have any hirhurim, any improper thoughts, because you're married. Pasmasalai. And now you can, it's fine, you have nothing to worry about. Now you can go and learn Torah. That's if you're in Bavel. So if you're in Bavel, get married first, then learn Torah. But in Eretz Yisrael, people in Eretz Yisrael, where are they traveling? They learn in Israel. So im isha, they got married, of the batluhu. They'll end up not learning. So in Eretz Yisrael, where you're learning in Eretz Yisrael, better learn Torah, then get married. In Bavel, you can get married and leave your wife, who cares, no big deal, and then you can go to Eretz Yisrael, which is stickle hard to understand, which I think why Tosfos over here has this kasha. The kasha in the Tam, the mashma to come Shmuel, the noise ish d'chila. Why should you get married first if you're in Bavel? Kidei liyos blo hirer, so you don't have any hirhurim. Umaykila lamilse b'vnei Bavel. We said it's the case of Bavel because they're going to Eretz Yisrael. Imken kati ika hirur kivan shahoychem l'chusim kaiman. What do you mean? There's no hirur. Your wife's not there, right? So your wife isn't there to protect your machshavos. So Ayin Tosfos, who has difficulty with this pshat. Okay, let's see what I wrote over here. Rashi v'Tosfos oimrim devarim hafuchim. Rashi Kaisev Sheim Noisit Chila Halach Yeshiva Barachaik Zenachon Lasot. Im Hayeshiva Beir Shel Haisha Shalo. This is beautifully written actually. Az Zelo Tov Bishvil Rechaim Mitzavaro Ba'oiskim B'Torah. Okay, very well said. All right, weiter. So. Mishtabachle Rav Chisda Rav Huna, but Rav Hamnuna. So Rav Chisda was praising to Rav Huna this person Rav Hamnuna. The Adam Gadol, unfortunately Rav Hamnuna we've already been called. He's a Karnuna, right? We saw that before. So he is an Adam Gadol who when he comes to your hands, bring him to me. I want to see this Rav Hamnuna. Kiyasa Chazal Paras Sudra. When he saw him, he was not wearing he wasn't Paras Sudra. He didn't have something on his head. Says Rashi, like you see, like a person puts a towel over their head. So there was their minhag that they cover their head only once they were married. So Amalei, my time lo Parisa Sudra. What's going on? Why don't you have your head covered? Amalei, what do you mean? The minhag is only if you're married, and Delun Tzivna, I'm not married. So Ahadrinhu Apin Mine, he turned his face away from him. He was upset. So I don't understand. How could this guy not be married? I'm like, Please, I don't want to see you until you get married. So Rav Huna Tameh. So why was Rav Huna so strict? Because I want to see this Rav Hamnuna. Rav Huna was not impressed because he holds Rav Huna Tameh. The Amr Ben Esrim Shanavo Nasi Isha. If you're 20, you didn't get married. Kol Yama Baver. Your whole life, all your days are in sin. Baver Sagadadach El Ema Kol Yama Behira Aver. You're going to be thinking Hirhurim Avera. And therefore, instead of having Hirhuri Avera, it's better you should get married. Until you're 20 years old, when is this guy going to get married already? When is he getting like a person's grandparents? When is he going to get married already? Once he's 20, then get married. Literally, your bones will disintegrate. And the way that my Rosh Rabbi Zweig explains this pshat is not that it's a punishment, but when a person gets married and they're young, so at that point you're a kid, she's a kid, so therefore you kind of mature and develop together as a couple. However, once you get married at a much older age, so you're set in your ways, she's set in her ways, and for the two of you to be able to really forge a bond, it's going to cause tibach atzmoisav, like the breaking of bones. You have to literally break all the habits that you've formed your whole life, and therefore it's not necessarily a good thing to wait for extended period of time to get married. Rav Chisda, the reason why Rav Chisda said, I am greater than my friends, and let's not lose sight, the whole story is Rav Chisda was speaking to Rav Huna about how great Hamnuna was, and Rav Huna was not impressed. But again, Rav Chisda was talking to Rav Huna, so now Rav Chisda is saying, "Oh, listen, I don't want you to think that I don't agree with you, right? You should definitely, you're right. You should get married young. The reason why I'm even greater than my friends is because the nitzivna b'shitzar. I got married when I was 16. The havi nitzivna b'arbesar. Can you imagine? Halavai should have gotten married when I was only 14 years old. As we can daf lamed, havi amina. I would be able to say, well, satan gira be'enayich, that the Satan should be like an arrow in your eye. Says Rashi, Klamer Hayisi Misgara boy Satan hu Yetzahara v'lo ira shiachteni. There's no way the Yetzahara would have a hand on me at all. I would have complete shlita over my entire Yetzahara. Amalei Rabbi Rab Nosson Barami, so Rabbi said, Adi Yadoch al Tzavare, while your hand is on the neck of Debrech, Mishteri ad Esrim Vitarti. That time when you still have the ability to, says Rashi, Yodcha to Kifal Bincha, you still have some control of your child before they grow up, and at a certain point they're not going to be Makabel, your Tochacha, your rebuke. At that point they should get married, between the years of 16 and 22. The Armula Metam Nitzari ad Esrim Varba, maybe between 18 and 24. Ketanai, Chanachan al Pi Darkai, you should do and teach according to their way. Rabbi Yehuda Rab Nechemia, Chad Omer Meshitz Rabbi Yad Esrim V'Tartin until from 16 to 22. Chad Omer Metam Nitzar V'Yad Esrim V'Arba 18 to 24. So you have to know some children mature earlier and some children mature later. Says Rashi, Ein Bodasa Kabel Toichachas Kokach V'Yal Tachbid Yisurim V'Toichachas V'Yosim Esrim V'Tartin. If you start rebuking them or doing this later on, we're concerned that they may literally kick you, they may rebel against you, and we obviously don't want to put someone into that position. Adkan.